only way to start your day.
Welcome to the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Here until 10 a.m. every weekday morning, live on Spice FM, on KTN Home, on YouTube, and on Facebook. Chai Kweli in a dairy best. City, Kweli Rongo.
Baba, kama kuna ukweli ni huo. Ukweli kabisa. And that kabisa is the same kabisa with chai, which is made with tea leaves, boiled to bubbling point, and then added with milk, again to bubbling point. Chai Kweli, rich and creamy, dairy best.
Bas. Top. Enough said. Enough said. Think Kenya, think tea. Think Kenyan tea. Think Kenyan tea. Think Brookside Dairy Best.
Yes.
Equation solved.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about the state of our economy. And now we're joined by Jimi Wanjigi, who is a businessman and a politician. Jimmy, good morning.
Good morning.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Do and CT. It's been a while.
It has.
A couple of months, I think.
Yes.
When was the last time I was here?
A couple of months
ago.
It's good to be back. It's really good to be back.
The last time you were here, I wasn't here.
Yeah,
that's correct. The time you were here, you had a jacket on like this. You were going to court.
Yes.
Straight after his.
Yes.
Are you going to court straight?
No. I just thought, you had this question, why I always come here in casual gear.
Yeah, good.
So I decided, let me just
spruce up.
Yeah, rank it up a bit.
Very well done.
Yeah, I'll dress down after this.
No. No. We demand the respect that we deserve.
It's good to be here.
Karibu
Really
sana.
good to be here.
What's happening in the economy? Our shilling. So a number of things that we'll talk about this. The winners and losers as the dialogue team wraps up. How not to bring down the cost of living. Layoff. Rise to COVID levels on higher taxes and fuel costs. Many things that are happening. 42% of foreign investors flee the Nairobi Securities Exchange in 9 months. Costly inputs choking productivity in Kenya's agriculture, and so on and so forth.
Yes. I'm loving that. Finally, we are having the headlines this country deserves. I think when I began here earlier this year, I kept saying we have the wrong headlines. The issue is the economy. I've noticed the papers from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and today. It's nothing else but the economy. It is what you call our national pain. This is one thing this whole country is united about. Yeah? The pain of our economy. Whether one describes it as taxation or mafuta, okay? Or high cost of living, right? Or debt, or inflation, or whatever it is the pain or unemployment, because that is now a very big factor. Closing factories is another big factor.
Yeah.
It is the pain we are united about this economy and the lack of clarity of solving the problem. I saw the president yesterday in Mombasa say that sometimes you don't meet your promises as quickly as you would like. That you make promises and when you get there, you can't quite meet the targets in the time that is expected. Now, that can only be somebody who has not done his homework, his or her homework. Because, like a CEO in any company, this is CEO of Kenya. And CEO of Kenya cannot pretend that they've not done their homework about the state of the nation before you open your mouth and make promises. That then becomes what you call politics bonoko. Politics bonoko. And that is what we have clearly seen. City, you're making a face.
Yes, I'm wondering, bonoko, what language is this?
Bonoko is Sheng.
Okay.
You don't know it?
Bro, I have absolutely no idea who bonoko is.
Bonoko is fake. The connotation is fake. This is fake politics. You seduce the public dangling carrots that you know you will never deliver. And that is the situation we are in.
Is it, Jimmy? You know, look, we've heard, you know, in terms of explanation that has been given, that this is what the intent was. So maybe when I was telling you that I was going to do certain things, my intent wholeheartedly was to do so. Now, getting into the boat, I then realized that there are many other factors that would then influence what it is that I wanted to do, of which I was unaware of before I got into the boat. Is that the same kind of scenario we'll be looking at here, or is it really?
No, it isn't. Not at all. Because our problems are not of our own making. They are of our making. It's not an international making. It's not an arena that is outside of us. That is only a small part. The problems we have were created primarily over the last 10 years, of which the current president was well aware of. You cannot feign ignorance. And if you're going for the top job, the one thing you must do is do some homework. You can't feign ignorance that maybe I was out of the system and so on, so I didn't know what was going on. You are here in Kenya like all of us. You have been in government. You have done an assessment of your liabilities. You've done an assessment of your credit balance. You should have, before you make promises. Just like a company. I know what the right side of my book says and the left side. My liabilities and my assets. And the problem we're having is that that was not done. In fact, it was ignored, like it's irrelevant. Let's just go and induce the people with the Bonoko talk, right? So that when they consume it, yeah, they will say, yes, now we have a narrative called Hustler versus Dynasty. The problem in this country is the liability are dynasties. That is the way it was put. They're the liability, right? So we remove them and life will be better, right? We are going to take money from them under this bottom-up scheme. We are going to take money from them and bring it down to you. But nobody could quite show you how this path is to be done. It was simplified into some sort of ideology, right, of haves versus have-nots. Now, the greatest thing about that campaign, though, and I must say it, is that we are here today discussing ideological economic agendas and political ones. This is no longer the past where Kenyans didn't care about this deep an issue, even about the economy, right? We are graduating, we are reforming, and that we must pat ourselves on the back for. It's a very positive thing, because this is how the world runs. You debate issues, real issues, right? Now Kenyans are understanding what an exchange rate loss means. When they see the shilling coming down, what it means to their lives. They're understanding something called interest rate. They're understanding it, right? They're understanding hii mafuta kibadilika inaharibu maisha yetu. They're understanding it. And they're concentrating on it because of the pain and the awareness, right? That this government got in promising us honey. And what we've gotten in return within 1 year is a very different template, right? It's bitterness and pain.
There are many
There's
things.
no honey.
There are many things. Maybe it's also the government has opened the door for us to see what exactly has been happening in governance, in our governance of the country for many years.
You know, you can say that in part. And as I said earlier in previous interviews here, I was not about to criticize William Samoei Ruto. I gave him a year. Because that's how you know what a government template is going to be. Gave him a year to see what path he's going to take. Gave him until his budget. He brought a new budget. We said the problem and continually advertised it. The problem is that most of our money is going to paying debts. 70-80% is going to paying debts.
Yep.
You're not going to solve it by raising taxes on the same people. He says he's following Kibaki. Kibaki expanded what you call the tax base. He didn't raise tax for us. He just made sure more people had income that he could tax. but he was taxing the same. He expanded the economies. He removed the barriers to development. So more and more of us, right, came into the formal economy. This template is to take the same donkey as, same. We have not even expanded to 2 or 3 donkeys, and milk us more and dry, finish us, right, to deal with this problem called debt. Now, the tragedy, I can tell you, is that he is doing the same thing they have been criticizing over the last 10 years. We talked about legality of debt. Parliament, for your information, and this is information he is aware of, because I myself made sure he knows. Parliament, in its appropriation bill this year, passed external and foreign loans to be taken of 313 billion shillings. A month later, in what is gazetted by the National Treasury as the Exchequer, Statement of Exchequer, the National Treasury states, puts there categorically, external loans and grants, 870 billion shillings. Domestic loans, 693 billion shillings. Where did Parliament approve any of that?
That totals to about
1.6 trillion
in debt.
in debt. And this is the Bonoko politics I'm talking about. You say on the one hand, we are raising taxes, we are not going to borrow. And you borrow an amount that has never been borrowed before. So don't blame the last 10 years. In the last year, Uhuru's borrowings were just under 800 billion. You have gone double what Uhuru did in the last 1 year. So you cannot blame the past. You are continuing the collapse of our economy on a template of illegality. I want you to know that in the budget, CT, the total projects that have been listed so-called for development are 807 billion. So you're borrowing 870 billion external loans and grants over and above the projects. You are borrowing, right, over and above what you have set aside in the budget of 416 billion
for development.
For development as tax revenue towards development, towards that 807. They are doing the same thing. In fact, worse.
Why?
They are doubling our problem.
Why?
Tripling our problem. Hastening our collapse. And that's what we are now feeling. That's why you're feeling this pain so evidently, especially since September. It's just like suddenly the place is drying up. They've sapped all the money. They're taking all the money from us. What money do we have for circulation? And they themselves are taking it out. They're taking it out to debt, odious debt that we kept talking about. And you're never going to solve this problem this way. Never.
Jimi, do I hear you to be saying that all these monies, these mind-boggling amounts that we're referring to, are actually being borrowed to pay debt?
You see, I can't see anything else. It's not coming back to us. The same budget appropriation said that this year we are going to pay debts of 1.652 trillion.
Yes.
The Gazette notice that I'm referring to, which came out a month later in July, said that amount has changed to 1.751 trillion. Right? The minister, CS Finance last week, said they have had to now start adjusting their budget because of loss of exchange to increase our debt servicing by another 215 billion shillings. So we are saying if you add those amounts, that this year alone so far, you're talking about 2 trillion going towards debt.
Are we able to trace and see? So this money that has been borrowed over the last 12 months, because we already know legally, constitutionally, Kenya would borrow for development.
Yes.
Okay. Like we can't see where this money that has been borrowed has gone specifically towards development. From what you're saying in the books, we don't see projects that are linked directly to that money. Now, this money that has been borrowed essentially is, as you say, going out to pay debt that was there before. Would it be okay, and I say okay very carefully, if the money that was borrowed, then we see that it is actually going towards a particular project here, a particular project there, somewhere else, then would we be able to, be a little bit more comfortable with the situation?
You know, the one thing I'm loving about this exercise is that every day I think we get more and more educated. And, as we progressed along the way, we're doing a lot more math. We're doing more and more numbers. CT, and I know you like numbers. We're doing more and more numbers. So we've taken, I'm glad you're talking about the last 1 year. We've taken the last 10 years up to June 2023. All right? And we've said, you know what a deficit is. The deficit is a shortage between our revenue and our expenditure.
Yep.
So we said, okay, what has exactly been our tax revenue? How much have we collected over the last 10 years in tax? How much have we paid? Wananchi. The amount is 13.38 trillion. All right? These are actuals,
13.
not estimates.
In 10 years.
Actuals in 10 years, right? To June 2023. Then we took our expenditure. So, what was our development expenditure? You're asking about development. 6 trillion. All right? What are our recurrent expenditure? We removed debt payments. So remove all the debt payments. And you put in our salaries, our pensions, our allowances, all these largesse of government, wanatembea everywhere, flying everywhere, all these things, you put them all there. And on top of that, you add all the county expenditure. All right? For every single county over the last 10 years. The total comes to 14.6 trillion. Sasa CT, you are a good mathematician.
Well, 20.6 trillion.
What is the deficit?
Deficit ni nyingi.
Minus.
I've already minused. My friend, there's a 6.6 trillion deficit.
No. How?
If our
revenue is 13.3.
Expenditure
13.38. Right.
Expenditure for development.
Total expenditure.
Yes.
Total without debt.
20.
Total expenditure without debt. Right?
That is development plus recurrent.
Development plus recurrent.
That's 20.6.
Plus, no. Development, you must have taken wrong figures. Development is 6 trillion.
Yes. Recurrent.
Right? Recurrent expenditure.
14.6.
No. I think I was telling you the total.
Yes.
So development is 6 trillion.
Yes.
In there, you add county expenditure, right, to 6 trillion. You add county expenditure. You add all the allowances, all the salaries, everything. The total, inclusive of development,
is what
comes to 14.6. Yes.
So
all right.
14.6 minus 13 point.
Correct.
That is 1.3.
Correct.
So that's the total deficit.
That's the total deficit. Correct? So how much did we borrow?
Over the last 10 years?
Yes. Shall I give you the figure?
Yes.
7.7. 7.7
Okay.
trillion.
The question is, this 6.6 for development,
Just before you go there,
was it tax financed? All of it, or some of it?
in fact, that's what I want us to get to. So, if we had a deficit, a shortfall of 1.3, we borrowed 7.7,
Okay.
which means we borrowed 6.4 trillion above what we needed. All right? Above what we needed. Now, that 1.2, you're asking Eric about development. If our 6 trillion, right, was the development expenditure, 1.2, 1.3 would have been about 20% of the development budget. 10% is 6.6.
Yes.
It's about 20% of development budget. So 80% of our taxes would have been able to pay
To cover.
to cover development. Are we together? Now, we borrowed 6.4, correct?
Yes.
Above
The deficit.
the deficit. Now, 1.2 is a deficit of 10 years. So 6.4 is the deficit of how many years? Correct.
So there
Like
was
60
need.
years.
There was
No,
need.
like 60 years.
Times 6.
All right? No, 10 years with 1.2.
Right. So
So the 6 is another 60 years.
I'm still stuck on that.
And you
six.
actually,
I'm still stuck at the 6.
6 trillion.
Yeah. The development
Expenditure.
that you've calculated, was it all tax financed? That's 6 trillion shillings.
You see, let me put it categorically this way, that if we had a deficit of 1.2, 1.3, you can say that 80% of it was tax financed. 20%
Was borrowed.
was borrowed. 25% was borrowed, which is in keeping with our laws. Are we together? Yes. But we still borrowed an extra 6.5 trillion above what we needed. And that's, Eric, the point I want you to catch.
And where did it go to?
That's the big question. That 6.5 trillion, right, is a deficit of the next 60 years.
what you're saying essentially is that
Yes.
we're not getting out of this hole.
We're not getting out of
If
this
we
hole.
keep paying back this amount of money,
Yeah.
and it's 60 years
Yes.
essentially of
Somebody
debt.
has made sure we have borrowed for the next 60 years. Spent it now. We don't know on what. We can't get out of it unless we address this odious debt. We can't. This is a never-ending problem. It will not end. This pain we are feeling is not going to go away. You know, it's just not going to go away. You're not going to tax your way out of this problem of 60 years forward. We are not.
Let's
That is
take a
a
break.
reality.
Let's take a break. 29 minutes to 9. Jimi Wanjigi is our guest this morning. We are talking about the state of the economy. We've started on that issue. All right, back to that one. Odious debt. We have borrowed this much. Did we spend that much of the borrowings on development expenditure as is required by law? Those are the questions we are asking ourselves. But let's take a tea break. This one is called the Brookside Dairy Best Tea Break. City. You know, when you talk about Kenyan tea, and even the last time you were here, Jimmy, I think we were still talking about the Kenyan tea.
Yes.
Chai ya Kenya.
Oh, inapendwa everywhere.
Yeah. The one where you make the tea by boiling water, city, weka majani,
Majani, boil,
let it boil.
bubble, add milk,
Apple.
boil,
Okay.
bubble. Okay? Then let it simmer.
Okay.
Okay? Then, thereafter, when you do the needful and you have poured it into a cup of tea, a cup of tea, because tea is in the cup.
Yes.
My friend, it's good tea, yes, when you have milk, but when you have dairy best milk, which is rich and creamy, then you have just about the best tea that Kenya can offer. That is what we now refer to as chai kweli.
Chai kweli. I must say, I'm hearing it for the first time here.
Yes. Chai kweli is the very best. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The Iten International Marathon's second edition, titled Run for Climate Resilience, is quickly approaching. This event will take place in Iten, Elgeyo Marakwet County on November 12th, 2023. Registration for the marathon's 3 divisions, 42 kilometers, 10 kilometers, and 5 kilometer family run is now open at Elgeyo Marakwet Sports Office and Ward offices. Registration fee is 1,000 shillings for 42 kilometers, 500 shillings for 10 kilometers, and 300 shillings for 5 kilometers. Corporate run registration, on the other hand, is 50,000 Kenya shillings. This year's main prize is 1 million cash. Visit www.iteninternationalmarathon.co.ke for more information about registration. The registration period will end on November 9th, 2023.
Nobody loves you the way that I do. Nobody can love you the way that I do, yeah. Maybe nobody.
Biggest, baddest festival in East Africa.
Let me tell you the tea. Do you know what your favorite celebrities are up to?
You know, we cover the hottest events and plug you into the best movies
And trendiest showbiz and entertainment news. You get all the exclusive interviews from your favorite celebrities right here on ICA, where they get to tell their side of the story. Only on KTN Home every Wednesday night from 10 to 11 p.m. ICA.
Nobody can love me the way that you do. Nobody can love me the way that nobody.
Bella, picha beshte yangu inafanya nini hapa?
Sijui si beshte yako.
Oh my god. Ile uoga tumeweka huko. Hiyo mashamba peke yake ni beshte wangu. Wacha this time tuliana nyoka. Tumeenda hadi na simba. Mehezo mimi siwezi tengeneza tu mambo yangu kwa hii village. Alafu nijifurahishe mimi mwenyewe.
Kuna shida gani wapi wala?
Hisia.
Nakuja, baby nakuja. I love me, baby nakuja.
When niambie, ebu decide, it's not your time, hiyo with us. When niambie, ebu decide, it's not your time.
Anapiga pick ndani ya nyumba na bado ananimaliza tukisikiza reggae kitubeba tukiwa matire the dance kwa tune.
DJ Tatua. Vibes ni typical, original, tukifanya tu simple.
Mina stories za mapenzi, abadan katan.
How do you do, my friend?
Mimi mtoto nilikuwa namweka ndani vizuri sana. Mtoto alikuwa na akosi kula dagaa.
I think our bond was so nice. I liked it. Maka tukafanana hata nika realize that's not what I want. That guy was not actually who I wanted to be with.
Nimejisikia vibaya sana.
Namwambia ni pride, anambia ati hizo ni personality gani?
Ati kwa nini nilikuacha? One, boring.
Hiyo ni reason gani sasa ya kuacha mtu?
Mimi si hata sioni importance za kukuambia the baby daddy honestly.
Acha tuachanie hapa.
Ningekumwagia hii chai saa hata kama mimi ni ex wako singekea. Jinyonge nikupe kamba.
Aende basi na aende apotelee mbali.
Do they make sense?
No.
Why not?
As I said earlier, they can't regularize 60 years forward of debt. You can't. There's no institution that can give you that sort of money. To pay things that you cannot account for, it's just not possible. It's not possible. And when you look at what they're doing, I've seen some newspaper clips, so-called from Treasury, others in the international media, talking about, for example, the Eurobond.
Yep.
That is going to be refinanced by more commercial money.
Yeah.
I even saw one of the banks called Trade and Development Bank saying they will contribute.
Yep.
Trade and Development Bank is one of those banks that, for your information, gave us money in 2019. On one day in February 2019, Trade and Development Bank gave us 4 tickets of loans of $1.25 billion. 4 tickets, which means $5 billion in one day in February 2019.
For what?
Your guess is as good as mine.
What was the tenure for that loan?
Or what are the terms of the loan?
10 years.
What interest?
Huge interest. 11, 12%. Huge interest. You didn't know about it, right?
11%.
You didn't know about it.
Over 10 years.
You didn't know about it.
Where
for
was
500 billion shillings.
Yes.
How did you?
It's in the books.
Whose books?
Treasury. If you look at all the books, they publish all the debt. It's there.
So it's hidden in plain sight, essentially,
Yes.
is what we are saying.
Yes. Yes. Now you tell me,
Is that
if that is the bank, and that's a bank that was so-called capitalized to the extent of 8 billion.
That's a bank that's with deep pockets and willing to give us loans.
Do they have
That's
deep
fine.
pockets?
Clearly they do.
It's so-called a Comesa bank.
500 billion in a day.
That has,
It would appear they do have some kind of money to give
No,
out.
5 billion, not 500.
$5 billion.
USD.
Yes.
Yes.
So 500 billion
500
shillings.
They were
billion Kenyan shillings.
capitalized at,
Well, more than-
at 8 billion.
Correct.
Yeah.
How does a bank lend you more than half of what it is capitalized?
Capitalized
Yes.
on, exactly.
Does that not leave that bank in a lurch?
Correct.
Indeed. And one must ask.
And are you
then
the only client the bank
that they
has?
have?
Correct.
And did the money actually get to Kenya?
These are the questions we're asking. Because we don't know what it has been used for. But we're paying it back expensively every year. We don't know what it was used for. It was taken in one day. At least even the Eurobonds we heard about.
Is this unprocedural?
Completely.
What's the procedure?
Completely unprocedural.
How?
But we went through the procedure. You want us to go back there again?
Yes,
About
please.
how Parliament approves all loans? Parliament approves all loans.
Okay.
Right? And all loans can only go towards development.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
You can't go for consumption.
Okay.
And development has got to be in the budget.
Okay.
You show me where trade and development appears in any development expenditure in the budget of that year, 2019. It doesn't exist. Does not exist. I think you saw the controller budget the other day talking very well. She said we are fulizaing to go and drink in the bar. Okay, those were her exact words.
Yes, they were.
Jimmy, let me ask this question. This one I ask purely out of ignorance.
Yes.
I thought the control of budget is the one who decides whether money
To
is
spend.
paid or
Yeah.
yes. Is it not her who decides?
You know,
Or is there somebody else who decides?
You see, at the end of the day, technically, there is no expenditure out of the consolidated fund
without her.
without her signature.
Yes, exactly.
But she's saying, and in fact, I don't want to criticize her. All right? She's singing like a canary. All right? She's saying there's a problem here. All these things, all these numbers, something is not adding up. So maybe she's approving things and asking for details and she never gets them.
Yeah.
I
All right?
I thought you asked for details before approving.
Yeah, and you're told, okay, this is coming, so you get an email or something. Then you say, we're going to follow up with this, and then you never see it.
But she can say
There
no.
seems to be a fundamental problem. And my fundamental problem goes
Yeah.
to this. I believe,
Yeah.
right? There are two budgets. There's one which all of us see as the national budget, and there's another one that the Treasury does. That's why we pass loans this year of 313 external loans and grants, 313 billion. And then the National Treasury, a month later, publishes that external loans and grants are 870. You see, there seems to be two budgets.
All for which money cannot be spent.
Yes.
Without the nod of the COB.
How do you know? How do you know all of it is entering the consolidated fund?
All right. So we're saying that
our experience with looking at the Eurobond, it did not enter consolidated fund.
So what you're saying, if we're going to enter the realm of speculation, because that's what we're doing right now, is that it's possible that there's another kitty from which money is spent, and because it is not the consolidated fund, that it does not require the okay of the COB to then be able to spend that money. Because if it's in a consolidated fund, by virtue of her office, she's the one then who will say, you can spend. So are you saying there's another fund somewhere?
I would really love you to answer just this one question. In June, Parliament passed a budget.
Yes.
The appropriations bill. All right? And they said the government is allowed to borrow 313 billion shillings. External loans and grants. Those are the only loans passed by Parliament.
So what was that?
A month later, the National Treasury gazettes, as a point of information, in its statement of exchequer account, where they put, we collected tax revenue of so much, we did this, we did that. They put external loans and grants of 870 billion. Please tell me whose budget that is.
Does it happen? Has it happened before?
Yes, this is the trend that has been there before. Because and we've been saying it. The odious debt.
I'm sitting back, Jimmy, and I'm thinking, by the time Parliament is passing this budget, it was passing a budget which had a deficit of around 800 billion shillings. Or thereabouts. Projected revenues of 2.8 trillion, expenditures of 3.6 trillion. So obviously, deficit financing was going to be borrowing.
Okay, if you are to follow the law, what is the deficit on?
It's on projected expenditure versus projected revenue.
But the deficit can only be on the development budget.
Yes.
For projects.
Okay.
The project's total was 807 billion.
Okay.
So how do you have a deficit of 800 plus billion? How?
Okay.
So you don't do development then?
Essentially what you're saying
don't do development.
So 800 billion shillings is going to be borrowed for development. That's how it sounds to me.
800?
Yes.
Yeah, but Parliament only passed 300.
That's what I'm asking. So at the point that Parliament is passing 300 billion shillings, what does it expect the government to do with the rest of the deficit?
In fact, that's the whole question. What deficit?
Is 800 billion?
Because it can't be 800 billion for projects. So that means Parliament is passing something that is unconstitutional. Because they themselves have listed projects at 807 billion. They said 400 plus was going to come from our tax revenue. So they've already appropriated it out of our tax revenue.
Okay.
And they said 313 was to come from external loans and grants.
All right.
All right? A month later, Treasury is telling you that we are borrowing external loans and grants of 870. And you're saying they had said the deficit is 800. Of what? How do those figures match up?
According to what Parliament passed, we can assume that the deficit was at 313, which they borrowed.
Correct.
So this additional 500.
But guys, how can that be a deficit?
Sorry?
How can a deficit be 300 when you are passing a budget that you are going to spend 3.6 trillion and you expect your revenues to be 2.8 trillion? That is where the deficit is.
No, but what does the law tell you? You can only have a deficit in development because that's the only place you can borrow. You can't borrow for consumption. You can't borrow to pay loans.
Okay.
You can only borrow for development. Okay. So if you have a deficit, it's only in development.
Okay.
Yes. So anything outside of that is odious debt, is illegal debt.
Okay. Are there projects?
It's an illegal deficit.
Are there projects
and that's
that are
the
in
point,
this budget?
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Are already borrowed for?
Yes.
Like carryover projects?
No. What happens is that, you see, when the government issues this budget policy statement, right? In about February.
Yeah.
Please understand, and this is something I had an argument with some people in the Treasury the other day, and they came back to confirm I was right. The budget policy statement you see coming out in February of 2023, for example, this year, is not even for this budget. The deficit is for the next budget. So that you're given enough time to source for revenue from outside sources to plug in the hole for those development projects. It's for development. All right?
Okay.
For development. You can't have a deficit for something else. That's the law. That's the law. So what is happening is that people are not doing their numbers. Even the parliamentary committees are not doing their numbers. And if they are, right, they're ignoring what they're seeing.
Okay.
And they're continuing. And that's why I'm saying I am now talking about the regime of William Samoei Ruto. They are continuing, right, the impunity of the last 10 years. And they are sinking us into a much deeper hole than you can ever imagine at a faster rate. They are collapsing this economy with what they are doing. They are not addressing the real issue. And the real issue is we have taken debt over and above what we should have taken. That is debt that is going to be with us for the next 60 years. That did not go towards anything, right, that we approved. And if we don't deal with it square on, you are going to collapse this nation of ours economically. And that collapse is going to come in the form, first and foremost, because you're going to see these tax revenues are going to get him nowhere. It is going to come with something called default. And when that happens, right, and I think the COB is ringing the gengele. Hapa kuna shida. Kuna shida. When it happens and it starts coming to Do's bank account and her M-Pesa, right, and anything she does, because you're going to start being told haircut, I want to see what Kenyans will do at that point. Because it means categorically that he is going to make us pay for what we never approved, that has never come for our benefit, right? And going to sink us further than these taxes are already sinking us.
A question that I continually ask is this, that it's clear, you know, as it's always said, the law is very clear. All right, constitutionally, what a country should be able, what Kenya is able to do when it then comes to borrowing is clear. I don't think anybody is going to dispute that. It's understood. But, and I mean, surely if there's a development at whatever level, you should then be able to see this development, that I know this is what it was for. It was to put up low-cost housing in 47 counties around the country. We should be able to see, even at least, at the very least, a plan for that. And we borrowed to have that done. Or we borrowed to have, to dam excess waters. We borrowed, you know, we should be able to see it. Now, in the event that that doesn't happen, the assumption is then the money that was borrowed, because it's not a matter of we want to borrow, it's the money was actually borrowed. In the event that that doesn't happen, the assumption is that that money that was borrowed was not put towards that project. For me, the crux of the matter here is then, why is that question not being asked? Where did this money go?
Exactly, do. Now, I want to give a graphic example of something that we all know, called SGR. SGR is a mirror of exactly what you've just asked, do. Exactly what you've asked. Now, I have the contracts, CT. So I don't know why people say they can't get contracts. Yes, I have the contracts.
The real ones, or like
yes, the real ones.
The top cover of the
no, the real ones.
From a photocopy of the one CS Murkomen.
No. CS Murkomen, I think, only gave a photocopy of the finance, the MOU on finance.
You have the contract,
isn't it?
How did you get it?
He only gave the MOU on finance, which of course I have. Talking about 3.8 and eventually 1.2, about $5 billion, right?
Yeah.
There were 2 contracts for finance.
Yes.
Right? Mombasa, Nairobi, Dukamoja.
Naivasha.
Is it Naivasha?
Yeah, we call it Naivasha.
But the place is called Dukamoja.
We call it Naivasha.
It has one shop.
Lowlands.
No, it's a place with one shop.
We call it Naivasha.
Okay. So, now, no, CT, you can read. This is read the heading.
All right.
Of course.
Photocopy. It's not written photocopy, I'm telling you it's photocopy. Republic of Kenya, Ministry of Transport. Construction of the civil works of Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway Project, EPC turnkey commercial contract between Kenya Railways Corporation and China Road and Bridge Corporation, contract document, July 2012. Managing Director, Kenya Railway Corporation, PO Box 30121, Nairobi.
So this is contract between Kenya Railway and China Road and Bridge Construction.
Correct. And this is for
the turnkey project of Nairobi, Mombasa, Nairobi.
Yes.
Jimmy, before you go on, how did you get this contract?
What do you mean, how did I get it?
I mean, how did you get the contract?
I think I have been in public space telling you that I had a lot to do with SGR.
Okay.
Not this SGR, but a private SGR.
Okay.
And in fact, the principle of the feasibility study and all that was my baby. Right? And the SGR I envisaged was one that was never funded by public money, but by private money. That was going from Mombasa all the way to Malaba at a cost of about 55 billion shillings.
You'll tell us about
and
how
we
did you
and
get
we
this
and we
contract?
and we no listen. And I was working with the same company called China
Road and Bridge Construction Company.
Now, these contracts were submitted even to Parliament after we raised a lot of queries in 2013. You guys just don't know where to look for things. They're there. This formed.
So all these people, Okoa, Mombasa, who have been going to court and all, should just go to Parliament.
Yes. These things even formed the basis of the original court case. Trying to stop SGR, which Justice Lenaula threw out and said, how did you get these contracts? Kenya Railways is not saying they are not theirs, but there isn't evidence of how you got them. So they were thrown out. And the case then went on to appeal. And in 2020, the Court of Appeal said, this is an illegal contract. These are illegal contracts and nullified SGR. 3 years later, the Supreme Court says SGR is okay. In fact, they say there is no contract. The Supreme Court, I mean, this was the most amazing ruling. They said that there's no contract between Kenya Railways and China Road and Bridge. The contract is government to government between the government of China and the government of Kenya.
So the Supreme Court says there's no such contract.
There's no such contract.
And
so this thing you're holding is Bonoko.
But,
yes.
But according to what you're saying is that the standard, the railway was built on this contract, which is nonsense.
Yes.
But how can
this one and this one? There are two contracts.
If our Supreme Court has looked at all documents,
this is the $1 million question,
and established that this thing does not exist, what is this thing?
This is the $1 million.
The question I want to ask is, what documents did they look at?
I don't know.
All documents that are presented before them.
And then upon which
the valid one is G2G.
Railway built.
Was that the sum total of the documents?
It was the G2G.
We don't know whether they just decided that the only one they've seen is this one, the finance. I don't know, because that one is the only one that says Government of Republic of Kenya, National Treasury, and Exim Bank of China. We don't know whether they chose to say this is the contract.
So the other two contracts, photocopies of contracts that you have, state that it is between China Road and Bridge Company
and Kenya Railways.
Yes. I see. Because who was the contracting authority?
Look at that thing. Look at signatures. Does it have signatures?
Jimmy is going to give it to me. And I will
show signatures. Has it signed? We want to establish that we are discussing a legitimate document
here. Not just of whichever light industry.
Yes. Go through the contract value, and then you see at the end here all the signatures and even the dates. Everything is here.
And the initialing of all the pages.
Oh yeah. Everything is here. You can see.
They've been initialed.
Oh yeah.
And then there are signatures.
Oh yeah.
And stamps and seals.
This is the letter now from Kenya Railways to Standard Letter of Award. Letter of award and acceptance thereafter.
You want to read this?
I think just read the amount.
Just
letter of award for what and the amounts.
All right. This is 99 based on the amount of. Let me just read it. 2220, comma 921, comma 502, comma 2221. This is
222 billion.
This
921
for what
million,
specifically?
502,222.1.
This is for the construction of the civil works of the Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway project.
Civil works.
Civil works.
Yes.
Thank you. Turn the next page. Yes.
This was letter of award.
And that is?
Acceptance of award.
Right.
Yes.
Of the same amount?
Yes. They're referring to the letter, that one which I just read, dated 10th July 2012.
Right.
Awarding the above caption project to our company. We hereby, now this one is signed, the person is a gentleman called Nduva Muli, Managing Director, Kenya Railway Corporation. Right?
That's addressed to him.
Yes, it's addressed
from
to
who?
him. The person is L.I., that's this person's first name. And the other is Q-U-I-N-G. Lee
Kingpin.
No, it's Lee Kiang. Okay, General Manager, China Road and Bridge Corporation.
Okay.
Kenya.
Now I'm a sign.
Award.
Even stamp.
Okay, now go through all the pages, right to the last page. Are they all signed?
Equal letterhead.
Are they all signed?
Are they all signed? Are they all signed?
Yes.
Are they all signed and initialed at the bottom?
Yeah, the initial at the bottom.
Go right to the last page.
There's
20 seconds.
Yeah, there's a squiggly thing and then a signature. Yes. Next page.
All of them. Go to the mpaka the last
final
page.
Does it
so
have?
you now see the signatures at the final
page has signatures.